There is a truth buried so deep within Scorpio, even Scorpio can't always feel it. You see, when most people think of Scorpio, they imagine intensity, magnetism, silence. But what they don't know is that behind that stillness is a raging ocean of secrets. Not secrets they hide from the world, but secrets they hide from themselves. Because for Scorpio, self-protection is not just a habit, it's survival. It's how they navigated betrayal, heartbreak, abandonment. It's how they learned to disappear into their own shadows to control before being controlled. But what if those very shadows are no longer meant to be hidden? What if the universe is asking Scorpio to come face to face with the very parts of themselves they thought they buried? In this video, we're not just talking about zodiac traits. We're about to open 10 sealed vaults, 10 emotional truths that Scorpio has pushed down so deep they forgot they existed. But here's the catch. Each one, when uncovered, has the power to set them free. So if you are a Scorpio or you've ever loved one, stay with me. This isn't a video. It's a spiritual unveiling of what lives behind the Scorpion's eyes, of what they don't say even when they love you, of what they've never dared to admit, even to their own reflection. And by the end, you'll realize what Scorpio hides isn't weakness, it's the source of their rebirth. Let's begin. Secret number 1. They fear vulnerability more than death. They will let you see their ambition. They'll even let you witness their anger. But their tenderness, their raw, aching need to be held, that's locked away behind vaults, even they've forgotten how to open. Scorpio walks through life in armor, not because they want to feel powerful, but because at some point long ago they felt powerless. Maybe it was childhood abandonment. Maybe it was betrayal at the hands of someone they trusted with their soul. Maybe it was the slow erosion of self-worth by years of being misunderstood. Whatever it was, it taught them one lesson so deeply it etched into their bones. If I show you my softness, you'll destroy me. So they didn't just build walls. They became the wall. They became mystery, silence, seduction, strength, and beneath it all, a trembling heart that longs to be seen but doesn't know how to be safe. A story from the shadows. Let me tell you about Ariel, a Scorpio woman I once worked with during a healing retreat in Sedona. She was breathtaking, fierce, the kind of woman who walked into a room and owned it without saying a word. People admired her, feared her. Men fell hard and then crumbled under the weight of her intensity. But Ariel confessed something no one knew. She hadn't cried in 7 years, not even when her mother passed, not even when her fiancé cheated on her with her best friend. I don't let myself feel, she said, because if I feel it, I'll collapse. And I don't know if I can get back up. That moment, that whisper of truth, revealed the core of Scorpio's secret. They don't fear pain. They fear the unraveling. They fear letting go of control, of appearing weak. Because deep inside, they believe love is a battlefield they were born to survive, not surrender to. The psychological root. Scorpio is ruled by Pluto, planet of death, transformation, and power. In psychological astrology, Pluto governs what we bury: shame, trauma control, and the deep human need to bond without being destroyed. Scorpio's instinct is all or nothing. Love becomes war, connection becomes obsession, emotions become dangerous. So they control exposure, not just to others, but also to themselves. This is why so many Scorpios appear cold or unavailable in relationships, not because they lack emotion, but because their emotions are too volcanic. They fear what might happen if the dam breaks. How it shows up in real life. They'll ghost you before telling you they miss you. They'll flirt, then pull back watching if you'll chase. They'll test you, push you away, then punish themselves for doing it. They'll sit in silence during arguments, not because they don't care, but because their vulnerability feels like handing you a loaded weapon. Even in friendships, Scorpios keep a part of themselves hidden, like a sacred room no one is allowed to enter. And often they'll gaslight themselves. I don't need anyone. I'm better off alone. It's not safe to trust. These aren't just statements. There are self-protective spells they've cast to avoid the pain of vulnerability. The consequence of hiding this, the tragedy. They ache for deep love, soul love, safe love. But their fear of vulnerability builds a fortress even love can't climb. So they push away the very thing they crave. Then mourn in silence when no one stays long enough to prove them wrong. Some Scorpio hearts go decades without real intimacy because they've confused control with safety and emotional exposure with weakness. The life lesson: Scorpio's healing doesn't come from being invincible. It comes from letting someone in and surviving it. True transformation begins the moment they whisper, "I'm scared to need you, but I do." That's not weakness, that's alchemy. When a Scorpio learns to trust themselves enough to fall open, something divine happens. They don't lose power, they reclaim it. Not the kind that intimidates others, but the kind that liberates their soul. Because real power is not what you hide, it's what you're brave enough to reveal. Secret number 2. They want to be saved, but only by someone who dares enter the fire. Scorpio doesn't ask for help. Not because they don't need it, but because they're waiting for someone rare. Someone who doesn't knock politely on the surface of their soul, but kicks the door open and says, "I'm not leaving." They crave salvation, yes, but on their own terms. What most people don't realize is that Scorpio's isolation isn't pride, it's protection. They don't believe anyone is strong enough to hold their darkness. So instead of letting someone love them in their rawest form, they wait. They test. They burn bridges just to see if someone will cross the flames to reach them anyway. This is the part of Scorpio that even they don't want to admit they want to be saved, but only by someone who refuses to run from their shadows. Let me tell you about Marcus, a Scorpio man in his late 30s. From the outside, he had it all: success, confidence, intensity. But underneath that, he was drowning. His relationships always started the same way: magnetic, all-consuming, unforgettable. But by the third month, the same pattern emerged: withdrawal, testing, emotional silence, and eventually disappearance. When asked why he sabotaged love, his answer was simple: if they can't see through my silence, they were never meant to stay. This is how Scorpio protects themselves, by demanding that others earn access to their soul through fire. But here's the thing: not everyone is built to survive fire, and not everyone should be asked to. Psychologically, this dynamic is rooted in Scorpio's deep fear of betrayal and their subconscious belief that unconditional love must be proven, not just felt. They create emotional mazes, not out of cruelty, but out of a desperate longing to know, if I burn, will you still hold me? But in doing so, they often mistake endurance for love and confuse self-sacrifice with connection. This internal war between longing and resistance plays out in subtle ways. They don't say "I love you" first, but ache to hear it. They cancel plans when they feel too emotionally exposed, then feel abandoned when others don't fight to stay. They pull away just to see if you'll follow. And the cruelest twist: even when someone does stay, Scorpio may still push them away just to test one more time. Here's the truth: Scorpio's fire isn't meant to scare love away, it's meant to purify it. They don't want someone who flinches. They want someone who looks into their soul, sees the rage, the grief, the chaos, and loves them anyway. But here's the tragedy in searching for someone who dares the fire: Scorpio sometimes forgets that they too must be willing to let them in. You can't be saved if you won't open the door. And here lies the lesson: true love doesn't need to be earned through pain. It reveals itself in presence. Not everyone will run, not everyone is weak, but even the strongest heart can't reach you if you hide behind fire forever. Scorpio must learn that being seen in their brokenness isn't death, it's rebirth. Because sometimes salvation doesn't look like someone charging into your storm. It looks like someone staying when you whisper, "I don't know how to let you in." And that, Scorpio, is the bravest thing you'll ever say. Secret number 3, they secretly test your loyalty again and again. Scorpio will never ask, "Can I trust you?" They'll watch, they'll wait. And then they'll test you not once, not twice, but over and over. And here's the secret they won't admit even to themselves. It's not about you. It's about proving to themselves that trust is still possible. Scorpio has an almost psychic ability to read between the lines. They sense when words don't match energy. They pick up on shifts in tone timing, facial expression. And once they detect the slightest fracture, they begin the test. But this test is not logical. It's emotional warfare. It's designed to shake the foundation beneath your feet just to see if you'll still stand. Let me tell you about Dana, a Scorpio woman who grew up in a house where love was conditional. Her father left when she was 8. Her mother shut down emotionally after that. Every time Dana cried, she was told to toughen up. So she did. But she learned something dangerous along the way. People leave, people lie. People fail when it matters most. Fast forward 20 years, Dana is now in a relationship with someone kind, consistent, safe. And yet, she's picking fights over nothing, ignoring messages for hours, making vague statements like, "You probably don't really care anyway." Her partner is confused, but Dana is not. She's testing. She's building artificial storms to see if someone will stay, because no one ever did before. This is how Scorpio love works in silence. They'll say they're fine when they're anything but waiting to see if you notice. They'll disappear emotionally just to gauge how long it takes you to knock. They'll reveal a painful memory, and then freeze watching how you respond. And if you respond too lightly, too quickly, or with too much distance, the door closes. Scorpio doesn't want blind loyalty. They want proof. Proof that when the fire comes, you won't flee. That when they're ugly, shattered, unreasonable, you won't label them too much. That when the masks fall, you'll still choose them. But here's the hidden cost of all this testing. Even the most devoted hearts grow tired of being questioned. Even the strongest partners start to wonder, is there anything I can do that will ever be enough? Because Scorpio, in their fear of betrayal, can become the very architect of emotional destruction. Not because they want to hurt you, but because they're terrified of being hurt first. They think, if you fail me now, I'll be ready. But deep down, they hope you won't fail them at all. The truth is, Scorpio's loyalty is unmatched. When they love for life. But before they give that to someone, they demand evidence. And that evidence must be earned in moments of chaos, not calm. Which brings us to the lesson. You can't prepare for love and protect against it at the same time. You can't test someone into devotion and expect connection to bloom freely. Loyalty can't be proven through fire drills of abandonment. It shows up when trust is extended even before it's confirmed. For Scorpio to truly receive the love they crave, they must choose to stop testing and start trusting their intuition. Because not everyone is the ghost of betrayal past. Some people are here to stay, but they can't prove it if you never let them breathe. Secret No. 4, they punish themselves harder than anyone else ever could. Scorpio may walk away from you. They may go silent. They may look cold, even heartless. But what no one sees, what Scorpio won't even say aloud is this: no punishment you could give them would ever match the one they've already given themselves. Scorpio carries guilt like a second skin, not because they've done worse than others, but because they feel everything at such an extreme level it carves into their memory like fire on flesh. And when they believe they've hurt someone, failed someone, or even failed themselves, they don't just feel regret, they feel unworthy of redemption. Let me tell you about Leo, a Scorpio who ended a relationship abruptly. He had his reasons: betrayal, emotional neglect, years of resentment piling up. But he didn't explain it. He simply vanished. Cold, sharp, final. To the outside world, it looked like just another Scorpio disappearing act. But months later, Leo confessed something in a support group. I replay the breakup in my head every single night. Not because I miss her, but because I can't forgive myself for how I left. That's the part people miss about Scorpio. They're masters of concealment, but not from the world, from themselves. They convince themselves that cutting you off was strength, that silence was wisdom, That distance was survival, but underneath they bleed, quietly, alone. Scorpio is ruled by Pluto and Mars transformation and destruction. When turned inward, this becomes self-sabotage. They will blame themselves for things outside their control, replay past mistakes like spiritual torture, sabotage new opportunities because they feel undeserving, hold themselves to impossible standards of loyalty, integrity, strength, and when they fail those standards even slightly, they don't just feel guilt. They collapse inward like a dying star swallowing its own light. Why does this happen? Because Scorpio believes that if they hurt someone, they must pay the price, even if no one is asking them to. They internalize pain. They convert it into self-condemnation. They wear it as armor so no one else can ever accuse them first. But here's the dark irony. They give grace to others, but rarely offer it to themselves. Even when others have long forgiven them, Scorpio still whispers at night, "I should have known better. I shouldn't have loved them like that. I should have protected them or protected myself." It's not drama. It's the soul trying to atone without knowing how. But here's the lesson Scorpio needs to hear. You are not your past mistakes. You are what you do with them now. Redemption doesn't come from carrying guilt forever. It comes from choosing to grow with it, not suffer under it. You don't heal by punishing yourself endlessly. You heal by choosing to believe that you can become someone better and still deserve love while you're becoming. Scorpio must learn that strength isn't about holding on to pain. It's about releasing the weight of it and finally forgiving yourself. Because when you do, you stop being the jailer of your own soul and you become the liberator. Secret number 5. They feel love more deeply than they admit. Scorpio talks about loyalty. They talk about trust. They talk about betrayal protection, passion power. But there's one word they rarely say out loud: love. Not because they don't feel it, but because they feel it so intensely that to speak it aloud is to risk unraveling everything. Scorpio doesn't love halfway. When they love, it's not just emotion, it's possession. It's sacred, consuming, elemental. And that's what makes it so terrifying. Here's the truth. Scorpio hides even from themselves. They fall in love far earlier than they admit. They just don't trust what they're feeling, so they bury it until it becomes undeniable. They'll joke, they'll seduce, they'll test, but the one thing they won't do is show you the full extent of their heart until they know you've earned it. Because love to Scorpio isn't casual. It's not a word, it's a vow, a soul binding, a silent contract that says, if I give you my heart, you better not fumble it because I don't know how to take it back. Let me tell you about Caleb, a Scorpio man who dated a woman for nearly a year before he said, "I love you." When asked why he waited so long, he said, "Because the moment I say it, I belong to her. And if she breaks me after that, I'm not sure I'll survive." That's the paradox of Scorpio love. They love first, but confess last. They feel everything, but reveal only fragments. And when they finally open, it's not a gesture, it's a sacred offering. This deep emotional intensity often shows up in ways that confuse others. They stare at you like they're memorizing your soul, but change the subject when things get too real. They protect you fiercely, but deny that it means anything. They disappear after moments of closeness, only to return more attached. Scorpio's emotional defenses are not barriers to love. They are proof of how much they care. They're not afraid of emotion. They're afraid of what happens after they allow it. Because love to Scorpio is always a risk, and they've loved before, and it cost them pieces of themselves they've never fully recovered. But here's the hidden cost of hiding that love. The people they care about may never fully feel the depth of what they mean to Scorpio. And when those people leave, not because Scorpio didn't love them, but because they didn't show it, Scorpio adds another wound to their heart and another rule to their emotional armor. Never love first, never love out loud, never love again. And so the cycle continues. But here's the lesson. Love isn't safe. It isn't supposed to be. But hiding it doesn't make it hurt less. Scorpio must learn that feeling deeply is not a flaw, it's a superpower. And when they share it not just in words, but in presence, vulnerability, and truth, they become not just powerful, but transformational. The kind of love Scorpio is capable of can heal wounds generations deep if only they stop fearing it long enough to let it be seen. Because the people meant for Scorpio's heart are not afraid of its depth. They are waiting to swim in it. Secret number 6. They fear becoming what once hurt them. Scorpio remembers pain. Not just the moment it happened, but the way it felt in their body. The way betrayal burned through their trust. The way abandonment carved absence into their spirit. The way lies left them doubting everything, even their own instincts. They remember, and they swear they'll never become that. But here's the secret. Scorpio doesn't like to look at too closely. They're afraid that the very darkness that once wounded them now lives inside them. Scorpio is ruled by Pluto, the planet of death, rebirth, and the underworld. It governs transformation, yes, but also the shadow self. That means Scorpio is constantly confronting two paths: be the one who heals, or become the one who harms. Take the story of Natalia, a Scorpio woman who grew up with a narcissistic mother. Every emotion she had was dismissed. Her tears were called manipulation. Her silence was punished. Her independence crushed. As she got older, Natalia swore, "I'll never be like her. I'll never make anyone feel small." But when she entered a serious relationship, something shifted. She became controlling. She demanded complete honesty, but withheld her own feelings. She tested boundaries. And when her partner pulled back, she called it abandonment and exploded. In her effort to never become her mother, she became someone who also operated through fear. Not cruelty, not malice, but fear. Scorpio is often caught in this internal war. They've been betrayed, so they demand complete transparency but withhold their own. They've been manipulated, so they seek control not out of power but out of defense. They've been left behind, so they cling too tightly or abandon first. And afterward, in the quiet, they sit with the guilt, the haunting feeling that says, did I just become the villain in someone else's story? Am I repeating what was done to me? This fear becomes a wound that never closes because Scorpio is harder on themselves than anyone else ever could be. But here's what Scorpio must understand. Feeling the shadow doesn't mean you've surrendered to it. Recognizing it is what keeps you from becoming it. Transformation doesn't mean perfection. It means choosing a different path moment by moment, even when your trauma begs you to react. The same Scorpio who was once silenced can now become the one who listens. The same Scorpio who was abandoned can now become the one who stays. The same Scorpio who was betrayed can now become the one who holds sacred truth in every word. Because Scorpio was not meant to carry the legacy of pain, they were born to alchemize it. The fear of becoming what once hurt you is real, but the truth is deeper. You don't become them when you remember the pain. You become them when you forget the lesson. And Scorpio never forgets. So take the pain, the fear, the memories, not as a prophecy of who you will become, but as the fire that forges who you refuse to be. That is the real power of Scorpio, not in denying the shadow, but in choosing every single day to rise beyond it. Life lesson from secret number 6. You are not doomed to repeat the pain that shaped you unless you refuse to heal from it. Scorpio's greatest strength lies not in avoiding their shadow, but in recognizing it, holding it close, and then choosing differently. Yes, you were wounded. Yes, you were betrayed. Yes, you were silenced, abandoned, or manipulated. But that is not where the story ends. That's where the story begins, the story of how you broke the cycle. Every moment you act with awareness, with intention, with compassion, you are writing a new legacy. The one who heals does not erase the past. They rise above it. And if you are a Scorpio watching this, now remember the universe gave you depth for a reason, not to drown in it, but to transform it into power, purpose, and peace. Secret number 7. They romanticize suffering. Scorpio doesn't just endure pain, they wrap it in poetry. They hold it like an heirloom. They make meaning out of it, give it symbolism, turn it into a story. To most people, pain is something to run from. To Scorpio, pain is often the only thing that's ever been real. Because in a world filled with superficial words, shifting loyalties, and shallow gestures, suffering feels honest. It strips away the false. It shows you who you are. And for Scorpio, who craves truth above all, that matters more than ease. Let me tell you about Eden, a Scorpio artist I once met at a healing retreat in California. She painted with intensity, deep red, black, crimson, gold. Every stroke looked like it came from a wound that never closed. People admired her art, but Eden confessed something in private. I'm scared to be happy, because when I'm happy, I can't paint. I don't know who I am without the ache. That's what Scorpio rarely admits, even to themselves. Some part of them has mistaken pain for purpose. They've lived in darkness so long that joy feels foreign, even shallow. They don't just carry suffering, they shape it into identity. This shows up in relationships too. They're drawn to lovers with wounded souls. They stay in situations that hurt because it must mean something if it hurts this much. They confuse emotional intensity with intimacy, and sometimes they push away peace because peace feels unfamiliar. They've cried through songs, through old letters, through memories they don't share with anyone. And they revisit those feelings not because they want to hurt, but because the hurt is proof they once felt something real. But here's the risk of romanticizing pain. Scorpio may begin to believe that their suffering is sacred and their healing is betrayal. That if they let go of the pain, they'll lose their edge, their depth, their fire. That without the storm, they're just ordinary. But Scorpio was never meant to drown in darkness. They were meant to rise from it. Yes, their suffering shaped them, but it's not their home. It's the forge, not the destination. The truth is, it takes far more courage to receive joy than to revisit pain, because joy requires surrender. And surrender is something Scorpio only gives to what they trust completely. Which brings us to the real transformation. Scorpio must learn to stop searching for meaning through pain and start creating meaning beyond it. Their soul isn't only defined by what broke them, but by what they dared to build after the breaking. Life lesson from secret number 7. Your pain may have been your beginning, but it is not your identity. Scorpio, you are not more real when you suffer. You are not more worthy because you hurt. You are already deep, already powerful, already whole, even when you laugh, even when you feel peace, even when life finally becomes soft. You don't have to sacrifice joy to keep your depth. You can hold both, because the ultimate proof of your transformation is not how long you've survived the darkness, but how bravely you walk toward the light without fearing it will take your truth away. Secret number 8. They crave control because chaos shaped them. Scorpio didn't wake up one day and decide to control everything. Control for them is not about ego. It's about safety. It's about survival. Because when you grow up in chaos, in unpredictable homes, unstable relationships, or environments where love came with conditions, you learn one thing early. If I don't take control, everything will fall apart. And so Scorpio begins to grip. They grip their emotions, they grip their schedule, they grip their image, their privacy, their relationships. Because letting go means trusting, and for Scorpio, trust has always been a dangerous gamble. Let me tell you about Jordan, a Scorpio man raised in a household full of volatility. His father drank, his mother vanished for days at a time. No one told the truth, no one kept their word, no one showed up when it mattered. So Jordan became the anchor. By 14, he was taking care of his siblings. By 18, he had 2 jobs. By 24, he controlled every detail of his life and the lives of those around him. He called it being responsible. But beneath that was a frightened boy still trying to make the world feel stable. And in his adult relationships, he micromanaged love. Not because he didn't trust his partner, but because he didn't trust life. This is the Scorpio paradox. They want to surrender. They crave to be held, but surrender feels like stepping into fire blindfolded, so they choose control. Because control gives them the illusion that they're one step ahead of heartbreak, that they can prevent loss, that they can anticipate betrayal. But that illusion comes at a cost. Scorpio becomes exhausted by managing everything alone, closed off to spontaneity, softness, unpredictability, misunderstood as rigid, obsessive, or controlling, afraid to share power because sharing feels like risking being left behind again. But here's what Scorpio must realize. Control is not the same as stability, and surrender is not the same as chaos. True stability doesn't come from tightening your grip. It comes from building trust first in yourself, then in others. And real love, the kind Scorpio craves deep in their bones, only blossoms in freedom. The deepest transformation happens when Scorpio allows life to flow, when they stop fighting the river and start remembering that they too are made of water. They are not here to dominate life, they are here to dance with it. Because control may have been necessary in the past, but it is not the future they deserve. Life lesson from secret number 8. You can't fully receive what's meant for you if your fists are always clenched. Scorpio, your power is not in controlling everything. Your power is in knowing that even if things fall apart, you will rise. You already survived the storm. Now it's time to stop living like it's still raining. You don't have to hold the whole world together. You just have to hold yourself with grace and trust that what's meant for you will stay. Not because you control it, but because you've become someone who no longer fears the letting go. Secret number 9. They often sabotage their own happiness. Scorpio dreams of happiness. They crave peace, fulfillment, the kind of love that stays. But when it finally arrives, when things get too calm, too good, too safe, something inside them stirs. A whisper, a doubt, a shadow voice that says, "This won't last. Better destroy it before it destroys you." Scorpio doesn't sabotage their joy out of malice. They do it because deep down they don't trust joy. Pain they understand, loss they expect, abandonment, betrayal, heartbreak. These are familiar. They've lived through those storms before. But happiness, that's unknown territory. And the unknown is always more terrifying than pain they've already mastered. Take Mariah, a Scorpio woman in her early 30s. She'd been through a string of chaotic relationships, intense magnetic emotional roller coasters. Then she met someone different, kind, consistent, present, no drama, no games. And slowly she began to panic. Why don't I feel on fire? Why does this feel too easy? Something must be wrong. So she picked fights, withdrew emotionally, questioned the person's intention, and eventually walked away, not because she wasn't happy, but because she was afraid that happiness would vanish the moment she let her guard down. This is the secret Scorpio rarely names. Sometimes they would rather choose the pain they can control than risk the joy they cannot. Joy feels fragile, unpredictable. Like glass, you're not allowed to hold, only watch. So instead, they unconsciously push away people who bring them peace, turn down opportunities that feel too good to be true, delay decisions that could change their lives, assume the worst, just in case. And all the while they convince themselves, I'm protecting my heart, but in truth they're punishing it. Astrologically, Scorpio is ruled by Pluto, the planet of transformation, death, rebirth. So they are wired to expect loss before gain, darkness before light. They thrive in emotional intensity, but sometimes they confuse chaos with passion and stability with boredom. And when life finally offers them softness, they mistake it for danger. But here's the deeper truth. You can't outrun happiness and still expect to feel whole. You can't build a life of meaning if every time joy knocks, you pretend no one's home. Life lesson from Secret 9. You are allowed to be happy. You are allowed to stay. Scorpio, stop treating joy like a trick. Stop treating love like a test. Stop waiting for the rug to be pulled out from under you. You've earned rest, you've earned softness, you've earned mornings that don't begin with anxiety and nights that end with peace. Happiness is not a trap. It's the reward for everything you've endured. But you have to believe you're worthy of it, not someday, but now. Secret number 10. They're not afraid of darkness. They are the darkness turned into light. Most people fear the dark. They avoid it, deny it, pretend it isn't there. But Scorpio, they walk straight into it and call it home. Because Scorpio doesn't just survive the shadow, they become the shadow and then transform it into something sacred. This is what most people will never understand. Scorpio is not afraid of pain, death, betrayal, endings. They have lived through all of it in love, in family, in the mirror of their own mind. But instead of running from it, they studied it, they sat with it. And eventually they became something more powerful than fear. They became rebirth itself. Let me tell you about Khalil, a Scorpio man who lost everything in 1 year. His job, his relationship, his home, his father. He told no one. He disappeared. People thought he was spiraling, self-destructing. But in truth, Khalil was undergoing the Scorpio rite of passage, the death of identity, the fall into the underworld, the confrontation with the self beneath all masks. And when he came back, he was unrecognizable but whole. He had become someone new, not in spite of the darkness, but because of it. Scorpio's life is a series of deaths and rebirths. They shed old skin. They let people go. They walk away from identities, titles, even entire lives, not because they're cold, but because their soul craves truth over comfort. And each time they fall into shadow, they emerge with new vision. That's why you'll notice something strange about Scorpio. They get calmer after heartbreak, wiser after loss, more powerful after collapse. Because the Scorpio path is not linear, it is alchemical. Astrologically, Scorpio rules the 8th house, death, rebirth, transformation, the unseen realms. They are the only sign willing to sit in the darkest room of the soul and light a match not to destroy, but to reveal. That's why Scorpio energy is often mistaken for dangerous. It is not dangerous, it is truthful, it is pure, and it is here to transmute, not to destroy. So if you've ever wondered why Scorpio attracts crisis, why they feel things others can't explain, why they disappear and then return with fire in their eyes, it's because they are not here to live on the surface. They are here to go deep, to face what others avoid, and to emerge holding light born from the very shadows that tried to consume them. Life lesson from secret number 10. Your darkness is not your enemy, it is your teacher. It is the birthplace of your power. Scorpio, you were not meant to fear the parts of you that hurt. You were meant to hold them close, learn their language, and use them to awaken. You are not fragile. You are forged. And when you stop running from what broke you, you become the one who teaches others how to rebuild. Because you, Scorpio, are not just someone who went through the dark. You are the light that learned how to burn there. Closing. The return to the self. So now you know 10 secrets Scorpio hides not from the world, but from their own reflection. And maybe as you listened, you didn't just hear about Scorpio. Maybe you heard about yourself. Because Scorpio is not just a zodiac sign, it is a path, a symbol, a soul who came here to transform, to feel deeply, to fall, to rise, to walk through fires others fear and come back with wisdom the world has forgotten. If you are a Scorpio, then you know how heavy the silence can be, how sharp your memories are, how exhausting it is to carry everything and share almost nothing. But hear this, you are not broken. You are becoming. You are not too much. You are precisely the kind of depth this world desperately needs. And your pain, it was never punishment, it was preparation. You were never here to be understood by everyone. You were here to understand yourself so deeply that no one could ever take your power away again. Not even the past, not even fear, not even you. So here's the truth that was waiting at the end of all 10 secrets. Your darkness never made you weak, it made you sacred. And now, It's time to stop hiding. It's time to step into your own light, not the soft light of pretense, but the burning, undeniable, soul-forged brilliance of a Scorpio who has met every part of themselves and chosen to rise anyway. Final life message for the viewer. If this video spoke to something in you, don't let it end here. Sit with it. Write about it. Ask yourself, which of these secrets have I carried, and which ones am I finally ready to release? Because transformation is not just for Scorpio, it's for anyone brave enough to go inside, tell the truth, and begin again, not softer, but truer. And if that's you, welcome home. If this journey through the Scorpio soul touched something real in you, don't leave without joining us. Subscribe to the Path to Buddha Wisdom, where every video is not just content, it's a mirror, a map, a moment of remembering who you truly are beneath the noise. We don't chase trends here, we dive deep. And if you're ready to keep exploring your shadow, your strength, and your sacred purpose, this is your space. Or subscribe now. Your transformation deserves a witness, and we'll be right here walking the path with you.